Yay! You were able to make it to the party. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey everybody, I'm Kelly Rettenberger here for John Paul Mitchell Systems to have a fun little swatch party with you today. We're going to be hanging out at my color bar and talking all about formulation for gray coverage, featuring CoverSmart from Color XG. CoverSmart is specifically targeted for those times that you're working with higher percentages of gray. I'm so excited to share with you this swatch party. We're going to be formulating, making beautiful gray coverage, and talking about the best practices when you're working on those heads of hair in the salon. So I want to introduce you to the guest of honor for this swatch party. This mannequin has two sections with two different percentages of gray. We have one that's at about 50% and one that's at 75%. So we'll be able to work with formulating for both of those sections. And then also we have a section here that of course has no gray. So we'll talk about ways to formulate to get even coverage in all those areas. Now this is key because if you're like me in the salon, you have a lot of guests that come in and maybe don't have an even percentage of gray all over their head. A lot of times we have those guests that come in and maybe they are at 50 or 75%, and then by the time you get to the back, they only have 25% or maybe no gray at all. So I'm here today as the host of this swatch party to help you feel confident in covering those grays. Let's get into it. CoverSmart is a beautiful addition at the color bar to be used with the rest of the Color XG family. These shades can be used alone or intermixed to provide that beautiful, durable gray coverage that fades beautifully on tone. There are currently two tonal series within CoverSmart. We have our Brown Ash or BA and Natural Natural or NN. There are 10 beautiful shades in these two series to offer you optimal gray coverage. These CoverSmart shades offer an extra dose of background color. This is going to ensure that beautiful rich tone and opaque coverage. Our Brown Ash series will give you an extra dose of black to gray background, which is going to give you a soft ash or matte tone. The BA series is great when you're looking to counteract warmth and get a beautiful, cool result. The Natural Natural series has an extra dose of that brown to tan background, so this is going to give you a cool golden tone and a soft matte result. This is really great when you're looking for depth at those levels 3 through 9. Paul Mitchell's CoverSmart can be used alone or in conjunction with the Color XG standard shades. But when would you choose to intermix and how much of each? Let's take a look at this intermixing chart. So you can see here that the higher the percentage of gray, the higher the percentage of the CoverSmart shade you'll use. For 75 to 100% gray or white hair, you're going to use the CoverSmart shades alone. Now, when you're working on 50 to 75%, you want to work in a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning 2 parts of CoverSmart to 1 part of your standard Color XG shade. And then for 25 to 50%, you're going to use equal parts of each CoverSmart and Color XG. So really, just know that the more gray that you have, the more CoverSmart you're going to want to use. That extra dose of background color will set you up for success in your formulations. And just like mixing with all of the standard tubes of Color XG, CoverSmart is mixed in a 1-to-1 ratio with your developer. Looking at the processing chart, Paul Mitchell recommends that for maximum gray coverage, you're going to choose 20 volume developer and process for 35 minutes. You can choose to add an additional 10 minutes processing time for that coarser resistant hair, but in all honesty, in the salon, I found that 35 minutes usually gives me beautiful results. All right, it's time to formulate. Now, given what we've learned from looking at the charts, I know that I'm going to want to use 2 parts of CoverSmart to 1 part of Color XG standard formulas for my 50% gray section. I really want to have a beautiful, cool, neutral end result. So I'm going to go through with 10 grams of 6,6-BA, 10 grams of 6,6-NN, and then 10 grams of 6N. So I have 2 parts of CoverSmart and 1 part of a standard shade of Color XG, and this is going to give me a beautiful, cool neutral. Okay, so our intermixing chart tells me that I'm going to want to go ahead and go through on the 75% gray section with pure CoverSmart. So I'm going to choose to go through with equal parts of 6,6-BA and 6,6-NN. This is again going to achieve that beautiful, cool, neutral end result. Okay, so now that we've gone over key formulation steps and the formulas for our 2 gray sections, let's talk about this panel that isn't gray at all. Now, when I look here, I do see some extra warmth compared to what we have in these areas through the sides, so I am going to be going through and cooling down that little bit of warmth that we see. To help cancel out that warmth and still keep that beautiful neutral tone, I'm going to be going through with 6BA with 20 volume from Color XG. So now, The party begins. Let's go ahead and apply our color. Starting in our first panel, this is the 50% gray section that we are using Formula 1. You can see I'm starting out with vertical sections. This is really to help me concentrate and saturate that base area. This is going to be more dense than her ends, and I really want to make sure to get beautiful coverage. After I get the base done, I'm coming back through in diagonal sections. This is really just helping me cross-check my coverage so that I can get beautiful, optimal results. I love that CoverSmart offers the same great benefits that the standard shades of Color XG do. She'll still be enjoying the benefits of the Pure Protection System with cottonseed oil and rice milk to help keep her hair shiny and beautiful, and the Dye Smart system is going to help give us maximum penetration and long-lasting tone. Here we are working in that panel with 75% gray, so now we're working with pure CoverSmart shades. In the Salon, I find that I choose to mix equal parts of the NN and BA series from CoverSmart a lot when I'm looking for that beautiful, cool, yet still rich result. All right, here we are working in that panel with that coppery brown with no gray to cover. So we're going through with a standard Color XG shade of 6BA. The BA series is a brown with ash, so it's going to help cancel out some of that warmth, but still leave that beautiful, rich chocolate tone. Our segments are all done and very well saturated. So here, of course, we had our 25% gray, our 75% gray, and this is no gray at all. Now I did go ahead and take that tiny subsection to go ahead and use the formula that I used for the 75% gray, just to show you what that looks like if you're using CoverSmart on hair that has no gray. So we're gonna have a nice little experiment here together. All right, so now we're just gonna go ahead and let her process. If you love hair color as much as I do and you're looking forward to future formulations, make sure that you're subscribed to the Paul Mitchell Pro channel. You can go ahead and click that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you are excited to see the results. And here we have our beautiful brunette. So you can see with CoverSmart, we were able to get amazing coverage on these panels. Again, this panel had the 50% gray, and then this panel had the 75% gray. Look at that amazing coverage. And through this third panel, this is the section that was completely gray free, and I overlaid 6BA from Color XG. Now looking at the comparison, I would say that after doing this swatch party, I probably could have added a little bit of the MT series to be able to counteract a little bit more of the red tones in that copper, or I could have gone through and just used the NN series with CoverSmart in those sections. And this is one of the great things about doing a swatch party is you really get to see the ins and outs of a color line. These are definitely a very close match, just not exact. Now, this is the section that I used with the formula of that CoverSmart. This is those equal parts of 66BA and 66NN, and you can definitely see here a darker tone, and that is because of that extra dose of background color. This is still a beautiful shade, but it does look a half to a full shade darker than the segment where we just used Color XG. And that's why I was saying you really need to be aware of the canvas that you're working on. If you're working with an area that has much less gray, you need to shift your formula because it could end up with the results appearing darker because of that extra dose of background color. So now, after our swatch party, how do we apply what we've learned in the salon? As I'd mentioned at the beginning of this video, I feel like it is very common to have a guest that has a front hairline or even the front full panel that is a much higher percentage of gray than the back. So let's say that your guest is 75% gray in the front, and I see a lot of times just right here behind the ear there's a little patch of gray. So you would section that off where you start to see that division. We will have one formula that has a higher amount of CoverSmart to be able to get that extra dose of background color, and then in the back our formula will most likely contain less CoverSmart so that we don't have too much background color to deal with. This is also really great if you are lifting your guest's natural level because you're able to formulate and neutralize that unwanted dominant pigment, because obviously you'll be working with more natural color, which means more unwanted dominant pigment as we lift the hair, as opposed to in the front where it's gray and there's no pigment existing. All right, I don't know about you, but I had an amazing time at this swatch party. I think it's great to be able to see what you can achieve with CoverSmart and all of the Color XG shades. I want to encourage you to go ahead and delve into formulating for yourself. If you want some practice, go ahead and grab a mannequin head or some swatches. I bet you can throw a pretty mean swatch party yourself. So on behalf of John Paul Mitchell Systems, I want to thank you for hanging out today. Make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out, and I'll see you really soon.